All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the DSN Prospect Pod. Just Dalton and I this time. Jake had I think a job or something to do. I don't know. I don't know what that is. So I can't speak on that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm working more than I have in a long time this year for a multitude of reasons. But no, it is just Dalton and I this week. We're gonna be doing our safety rankings. Obviously, you know that with the title of the episode. But this is our last positional rankings before 10 days from now the whole thing is going down, at least the first round, right? So not that much longer to go, but we'll get the safeties out of the way today. We'll talk a little bit more about stuff at the end here. And our last show coming next week, I'll plug this right now, is going to be a couple different things. It's going to be a final predictive mock draft because we haven't really done that this year. We wanted to focus on what we would do. Feel like it's more interesting content. And we'll be revealing our top 50 boards, talking about prospects kind of for a final time. That all will lead into our draft day show on the first round. Bunch of guests coming in. I'll talk more about that at the end. But Dalton, before we get started here, specifically on the safeties, anything you want to throw out there as far as watching this part of the class? Were you surprised, happy, sad? How do you feel about this part of the class?
So going in, I really thought this was going to be a really good safety class, given what I've seen and what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little surprised. Only ended up having 4 day 2 or better grades.
Oh, okay.
On guys. A lot of 4th and 5th round grades.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I ended up falling on guys. But I will say I do think at the top, I do think there are some really good safety prospects in this class, but I do think it is just the position's getting weird.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys that are in this class, I don't know if they are the prototype build for an NFL safety, and the ones that are have some technique stuff to kind of get through. And it's tricky. And I think, honestly, after watching the tape of this class, I think some of the safety contracts we saw here make a lot more sense now.
Yeah, it's a weird class because I think the biggest thing that you can mention is that you brought up was there's not a lot of prototypical safety builds in this class.
Correct.
Even there's some guys who are one in particular who are bigger than you expect a safety to be.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there's a lot of guys who are sub 200, sub 6 foot. And some of them make up for that with their traits, and we'll talk about some of those guys that, I know me too, I'm kind of close to you on, I think, the grading. I think there's a couple guys who I think at the back end of day 2 I'm comfortable with, but still feel better about a fourth round
were a couple
pick.
That I was right on the fence.
Exactly. So that's kind of, I think the meat of this class falls in that range, somewhere between pick 75 and 125. A lot of these guys could go in that range, and I'd be happy. But there's a couple of guys at the top, and they're probably the suspects you expect them to be. We'll see what Dalton and I agree there. But I imagine we'll see. But even so, there's a couple guys at the top that kind of everybody has been in on to some degree, or some I will say have kind of forgotten about in one player's case. But we'll see if we agree with that one too. But before we get into specifically our top 10s, there's a couple guys that I know I have outside of my top 10 that I wanted to talk about. But Dalton, I want to give you the chance first. Is there someone outside of your top 10 that you think is worth spending a little bit of time on first here?
So I think the one guy, I don't know if he is really, I don't know if he's a safety at the next level, but
okay.
We didn't get to talk to him we didn't talk to him with corners. Maybe he's on your list, but I got but Sebastian Castro from Iowa. I think we got to shout him out.
We do. But go ahead.
I mean, there's a lot to like, and he's been if you watched Cooper DeJean last year, you ended up seeing Castro a lot. Those two together too, I think, were such a good duo for Iowa. And even this year, Castro's kind of stepped up and really taking command of the secondary, I think, this year. Done a lot of the extra little things that DeJean was doing as kind of that guy that's just going to go shut somebody down. But, yeah, I don't know if he's more of just a pure nickel at the next level. And, I mean, that's going to be the theme of, I think, a lot of the guys in this list. It's just hard to tell with him, but there's a lot to like. I mean, just plays the game hard and can do a lot of different things. I just don't know how much of it he'll be able to do at the next level.
I think that last sentence that you just said is kind of my issue. He was safety. Like, again, is he a safety? To me, he's not really. Like, I think if he is a safety, it's a true like box player, line of scrimmage type of player, like an overhang defender / slot type of player. And that's kind of what he did mostly at Iowa this past year in particular, and then last year too. But I think ultimately the problem with him, and you can look, and you know this watching him, and you can tell it pretty quickly. And I think you also can look at the testing numbers too. This is just not a good athlete, honestly. At the end of the day, ran a 4.7 at his pro day. Like, just he's not an overly big safety or slot corner. Like, he's just lacking a lot of the traits and the measurables you want. And I think too many of those things are missing for him to probably be like a starting caliber player at the NFL level. But I could see him being a valuable like third or fourth DB type of guy that can play special teams for you. I'm sure he'd be great at that with coming from Iowa and his makeup. 190 something, I think, is what he weighed at the pro. Like, if I'm not mistaken, I actually have it.
It's probably too much weight to put on. Then I was gonna say I almost wonder
197. He was 5'11", 197, yeah.
I'm going to say if he was walking around more at 215, 220,
that'd be different, yeah.
You could imagine him as one of those safety linebacker converts.
Yeah.
But walking around under 200 pounds, I don't know if he's ever going to put on enough weight to be a linebacker, even a nickel linebacker.
No, he's one of those cases where the film is pretty good this past year. I think 2023 was phenomenal playing with DeJean. It was much better. But you see the lack of physical traits. You do see it. Some guys are able to mitigate it to the point where I'm I still have worries, but I'm going to be more willing to give you the benefit of the doubt. I simply just don't think you could trust this guy to be anything close to a true, especially deep safety. Box safety, whatever, maybe. Slot corner in certain matchups on certain guys, maybe. Really smart player. He has good ball skills when he's able to get to the football, but it's not often enough. I don't think, especially at the next level, I don't think it'll happen. Definitely worth shouting out. He's going to be drafted. I don't know what his role is ultimately going to be, but he is just kind of one of these guys. And there's a couple of guys here that I think just lack some of the high-end traits to be viewed as more than potential backup / maybe starters if they develop enough. So. For me, my 11th safety, again, he was 12, if we're just doing him as a safety, is a guy that, I know some people are kind of high on him. I think he has better physical traits because he's a bigger player and a faster player than Castro. But I just think the coverage is a little just too – I don't know if the coverage is going to be good enough for him to be a full-time starter for me. I'm curious where you have him. You might have him in the same boat. Maybe you have a little bit higher – on him, but Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State was my number 11 safety.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So this is one of those guys that we're very different on.
Okay. So where do you? Let's just throw him out there. Then where do you have him at?
He's number 5 for me.
Okay. All right. I feel like there's going to be a reason why you're higher on him than me. So I want to give you the chance to actually talk about him first, with you being higher on him. So give us a spiel on Ransom here.
And I think for me, it's just more of a type of player profile that I'm a sucker for.
Mm-hmm.
I love the physical safety. I love a guy.
And if you do, guess what? This is your guy. This is one of your guys, then, for sure.
Loves to lay the wood. That was the very first thing I wrote down for him.
Absolutely.
And I do think he has enough versatility to kind of play a wide variety of positions. Obviously, if you make him sit in single high all the time, it's probably not his best role.
Right.
But I do think the man coverage was really, really sticky. I really liked that. I think, there's might be some matchups he might not be able to take on, but I think for the most part, I think he's going to hold up pretty well in man coverage, especially because of how strong he is and how good he is at getting guys off their routes. That was kind of the thing that jumped out at me. I think he made up for some of the athleticism stuff. And I just think with him, worst case scenario, you're getting a really good box safety. And like, I mean, again, worst case scenario. And I just think like no matter what, he's gonna start in the NFL. And I just think that, you know, the ceiling's high enough that I think that I could see him. He's my highest graded day 3 guy.
Gotcha.
So he's my first guy, my first safety off the board on day 3. I have a 4th round grade on him. And I mean, yeah, him being my number 5 guy, I think is more of a reflection of how low I am on a couple other guys.
Maybe.
But yeah, I really like the floor on him. I think that's the big thing with him.
I don't really disagree too much with that because I have him as a 5th round player. That's where I would be comfortable taking him because I do think like worst case scenario, you have a guy who's probably going to be good enough as a box type of player to come in and be like a 3rd safety for you as more of that bigger safety and more so the run defense type of safety. I think the man coverage, there's reps of it where I'm like, okay, I can kind of see it. The problem for me ultimately in coverage with him especially is it felt like he just is a little stiff in the hips. And like when he has to turn around with a guy, which like if he's coming down to play man coverage on like a slot receiver, there's a couple reps where it's like as soon as that receiver made a cut, he kind of felt like it was kind of over for him at that point.
Yeah.
And like a lot of safeties are going to be in that boat, so it's not really super huge criticism, but I felt like guys crossed his face pretty easily whenever he was man up with them. As a deep safety, I just the range just kind of isn't really there. I think he does explode as a tackler, like in short bursts. He can definitely he lays wood on people for sure. Like he will hit the shit out of people, which I appreciate for sure. But yeah, in general, like he's the separation between him and like my 7th safety, for example, is like not even a full round. Like it's really not that far off from like kind of the range you have him in. I just have an archetype of player that I kind of think is more impactful at the next level oftentimes that pushes him down, but is in the same round as like the next 3 guys, for example, is where I'd be comfortable.
That's fair.
So I left him outside of the top 10 because I think some guys above him have a higher ceiling potential. He has a higher floor than probably I would say everyone up through my number 7 safety, I would say probably too. So it's kind of pick your poison at that point. But anyone else you want to shout out before we get into our like full on top 10s? Now we know your number 5 guy.
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. So if that's the only one that you wanted to, with Sebastian Castro that you want to shout, let's start with my number 10. And I'm wondering if you have this guy in your top 10 because admittedly, he's a guy that like I watched a lot of before this. One of the only guys I saw a good bit of because I was covering this team before. And they lost their top safety for the year early on in the season. Jalen Reed is my number 10 safety out of Penn State. I think right now as a cover player, he's very raw, but I think the athleticism is very evident on tape. And a guy like this, if you can get on day 3 and kind of try to develop him, he could be a really good special teamer, I think, because of the athletic profile and the fact that you think he tackles very well in general, too. I think ultimately I'll take a chance on this guy because of the athletic traits, and I can develop him into a like legitimate deep safety type of player. I think he has that level of athletic traits versus a guy like Lathan Ransom. And he did have to step up this year, and I think he did a pretty good job overall. The coverage, again, it's raw. There's moments where it's like, what were you looking at there, Jalen? But for the most part, he has the ability to make plays on the ball that some of these other guys, that especially down the list that I'll be watching later, I don't think could make. So,
yeah, he is 8 for me, so I'm not far off. I do just love the athleticism and
it's very clear.
I love safeties that are physical because I feel like to play safety, especially, you have to be at least be willing to get involved in run support. I hate watching tape of safeties that just kind of hang out and let the run play happen. And then they're like, oh, if it comes to me, I'll try to pretend to get involved. And it's like, no, like you can't, especially as the league's going to more of these power run schemes, especially, you're seeing more. I think we're starting to see tight ends come back. I think we're seeing more 12 personnel. And if that's going to be the case, you need a physical safety to get up in there and at least pick somebody up. And he does that really well. I think the worry for me is I just think he is kind of limited in what he can do. Like, I don't know if you're going to sit him in a single high set and ask him to be your center fielder. I just don't know if he's ready for that right now. I don't know.
Not right now. I don't think so.
Yeah. And I also just wonder if he has the long speed for that going forward, because a great athlete in general, very explosive. Sideline to sideline speed, or from middle of the field to the sideline, I don't know if it's there. That's kind of the main thing with him. But yeah, I'm in a similar boat. He's one of the million safeties that I have a 5th round grade on.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like I'm betting on the traits here with this guy. Like, I think he is definitely a guy that doesn't probably play any defense early on in his career, especially his first year. I would say you got to kind of let him figure it out in an NFL coaching room, an NFL defense. Let him, like I said, go play special teams would be awesome for him. I think he'd be a great player in that regard. I do think the long speed, like, it's not as good as I'd say like his 40 time probably suggests, but it's close to that. I think the problem with him is he's still not super confident with his pursuit angle. So I think sometimes he slow plays it more than he should and doesn't always get to plays on the sideline at the time that he can get to them. And that's something I think a lot of safeties struggle with in general. Like, pursuit angles is tough. It is. Like, there's a reason why you see so many, especially in college, like guys who just end up completely whiffing on the sidelines and stuff like that. It's tough, especially with the wider hashes at the college level. So he's the guy I'm willing to definitely take a shot on. So who is your number 10 guy then?
So my number 10 is Malachi Moore from Alabama.
Okay. He's number 9 for me, so we're right in the same range for him too.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the coverage. I just don't know what else he's going to do. That's just kind of it. And like, he's another guy that at the end of the day, I think is probably a nickel.
I tend to agree. Right off the bat, like, we could talk about him more, but like more. But he, to me, his profile is just like a true like nickel defender, very smart coverage player. But again, not the rangiest guy in the world, not the biggest guy in the world. I don't know if I love him as a box safety because of the tackling. He doesn't miss a lot of tackles, but he doesn't bring any violence to those tackles. Like, he's very much like a cleanup tackler. He's not going to take a guy out in the middle of the field. He's not going to probably wrap up and bring down a bigger, stronger receiver or running back. Like, he's just not a very well-built guy overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he plays a little bigger than he is. Like,
because he's not big.
What?
Because he's not big. Yeah, he's
not big though. Like, and I feel like that stuff shows up at the next level.
More so than it even in the SEC, I think, probably so. Like, because I think he ended up coming in at about 5'11", 197.
Yeah,
with some smaller arm length too. Like, he's a kind of a stocky build almost a little bit, but doesn't have a ton of power in his frame.
Yeah.
Interesting player. Again, like, the coverage ability, especially this year, was phenomenal for Alabama. One of their only real like huge bright spots in the defense, other than like Jahad Campbell. But overall, like, he doesn't have the best athletic traits, and the tackling is probably going to become a bigger issue at the NFL level. So it's kind of, you take him on day 3, and if he ends up being like a true starting caliber player for you, you love it. If he isn't, worth a shot, honestly. Still, coming out of the SEC too. He also has some injury stuff. I know one of them was like a head injury. I'm hoping he's good there, but outside of that, good player to have his depth. He can make a great third safety / nickel type of player too. So
yeah.
So he was again my number 9. So who would be number 9 for you then?
So this is probably where we're getting into maybe a little controversial take here.
Okay.
I don't know if people are gonna like this one too much, but I got Billy Bowman Jr. at 9 for me.
Okay, well, he's number 8 for me, so we're all still
good.
You and I are still kind of in, and I feel like I know it's gonna happen.
Really high on him. I don't know.
Yeah. I've heard that too.
Yeah, I've been listening to some stuff, and when I heard the way he was described, I was kind of surprised. For me, smart, gets good depth. His instincts and hips are good. His feel for zone is good. Breaks on the ball well, but at the end of the day, my worry with him is it's just this little ass boy running around. There. It's just this little guy running around in the secondary, doing shit. And at the end of the day, I just don't know if it's going to work at the next level. I don't know if he's good enough of an athlete to make
I will say he tested out of this world. I'll give him credit for that. But it doesn't always show up on tape. I will give you that.
Like, there were a lot of plays in man coverage, especially where guys are running by him.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, if at that size, you can't let them beat you to leverage. Like, you have to, at that size and man covered, you have to basically be running the route for the guy. You have to outrun him by a lot. And I just really worry, like, he can't cover a tight end in the NFL. Like, I don't know if there's an NFL tight end that he's going to be able to cover. At his size, I really just don't. And he's going to be very limited. Also, like, definitely worried about the tackling. The tackling's rough.
Yeah.
Let's just dive at ankles and hope it works. Yeah.
I mean, the effort's there, right, with the tackling, but he's not built like an NFL safety. And there's a guy that I have above him that I think is also not particularly built like an NFL safety, but he's better in that regard, and I think he's also a better overall coverage player, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, I'm sure. But yeah, at the end of the day with him, like, he's a fun player. I think he'll make some plays at the NFL level if he's allowed to just play a pure, like, deep safety role and like a zone coverage role. But in man, like I said, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot out of him. It maybe smaller players, maybe he can come up and play a slot a little bit on smaller slot receivers and, stuff like that. I think his athleticism is there. It's just like you said, I think he doesn't have the same feel and understanding of man coverage, I think, as he does in the zone. And that's okay as a safety, but it does limit you a little bit. Like, is he only going to be like a third safety who comes in and helps protect the back half of defense? Is he going to be, the true free safety in a defense, and there has to be other guys take over man coverage roles and stuff like that? That can work, but anytime you're limited as a safety, because people, like, I feel like a lot of times people think like, oh, linebackers, running backs, those are guys like linebackers on defense, running back. I think it's safeties and tight ends are the actual, like, some people will say, like, with linebackers that because they're similar, like, weight profiles, tight ends and linebackers are kind of the opposite of each other. I think it's safeties and tight ends, because tight ends have to do everything on offense: block, catch passes, be able to beat guys. Safeties have to tackle, protect the back end of defense, play man coverage plays. Like, they have to do everything on defense, and he just simply can't do all of those things. Like, he just is limited in certain facets, which makes him a good player in some aspects, but you do have to worry about, like, the fit with the particular team, right?
I agree.
So I think for those who are big fans of him, I get it. The plays are fun sometimes. He's a playmaker in that way. I do think it has to be in very specific roles, right? So, and that's kind of the book on him. But that takes us up through 8 for all of us, or for both of us. So I believe so. So who is your number 7 safety here?
So my number 7 is Jonas Sanker from Virginia.
Okay. So he's my number 5. So he was kind of my favorite outside of that top, like, 4 that I think we're going to talk a lot about, assuming we have the same top 4. So let's talk about him here then.
Yeah, he was my top guy out of my guys with 5th round grades. He was like my highest one, the highest on. For me, I mean, I think there's a ton of potential there because the size is there.
Yep.
And all the things you need to do well, he does. He just has some kind of fatal flaws that could make him more of just a strong, box safety or a true strong safety. This is kind of the guy that's running around hitting people. But he can cover. Yeah. And that is the thing. It's just, the problem is his instincts are too good sometimes, and he gets caught ball watching at times.
He absolutely does, unfortunately. But
there's just times where he's just staring down the quarterback, and dudes are running right by him. And like, he can't do that. And also, like, he kind of takes on more blocks than he needs to at times. It's like, dude, just go around this guy and make the tackle. Why are you engaging him on this screen?
He's almost too physical with it sometimes. Where it's like he wants to blow up a dude trying to block him. And it's like you probably can just beat him on you don't have to run. And again, I'm part of me is like I appreciate the violent play, but like there's smart plays to make though too. Like you can't just be like, well, I'm gonna just run through this dude's face. It's like that's great if he's the ball carrier, but if it's the blocker, maybe not so much. But go ahead.
I mean, I'll let you. I know you're hiring. I'll let you kind of talk about him a little bit more.
At the end of the day, for me, like the reason why he's number 5 and not like number 6 or 7, just make sure my camera's not trying to make me look insane. But it's also just the size profile and the athletic profile is a little bit better than some of the guys right below him. And I think they have similar weaknesses in some cases. But again, with Sanker, I think a lot of his things are coaching things. Like I think you can coach him on, okay, you can't just watch the quarterback constantly and let guys go behind you, like you said. You have to kind of react more to stuff around you than you do. And yeah, he needs to just be smarter about like defeating blocks and actually trying to use his athleticism to get around guys instead of just trying to blow everything up that he sees. Like that's fun, but it just isn't going to work at the NFL level as well, or just it's going to create some big plays for the offense. But I think all those things are more coachable things. What you can't teach is prototypical size, over 6 foot, over 200 pounds. Really good athlete, especially in a straight line. I think some of the quickness stuff is a little bit worrisome. I think sometimes like you get those like little in and out routes he can get beat on because he takes a false step and then he's kind of cooked at that point. Like all the traits are there to be a starting safety. He just has to clean up a couple things that I think are mostly, like I said, mental errors, not physical limitations like some of the guys we've talked about up to this point. So that gets him like the end of day 2 is kind of where I have him, or like I think you could take him that high if you believe in your coaching to get him to clean up those things. And then if you're kind of just happy with where he's at this point, a day 3 flyer is great. Like the top of day 3 is fine too. So that's ultimately with him where I'm at. But.
Yeah. At worst, he's going to be an excellent special teams guy.
Oh yeah, that's where you can just go blow a dude up, take him out of the play. You can do that. That's fine, Jonas. You'll excel at that. I promise you that much. But my number 7 guy though is R.J. Mickens out of Clemson.
Okay.
He's
watch too much.
Okay. He's very fun. I think you won't. If you haven't watched much of him, you wouldn't like him as much, Dalton, because he kind of has. So at least in the games I watch now, the run defense grades. If you look at them on like with PFF and you hear people talk about them, it's not brought up a ton. So maybe it's just the games that I watch, but he doesn't seem too interested. You talked about not liking this in getting into the kind of the meat and potatoes of playing the position. Like, doesn't seem super thrilled to film in the run game. Doesn't seem to want to get into the weeds there. Not the most physical player in the world. Kind of looks for opportunities to make big hits or big plays, but doesn't really kind of always play with that level of violence that you want to see from a safety. Yeah. But the athletic traits are certainly there. You can see the speed whenever he closes on guys. He really erases routes sometimes. Like when he sees it and can click and close, like he gets there in a hurry. Like maybe as well as most guys in this class at this point, honestly, that I've watched at least. But again, the tackling inconsistency, the fact that he doesn't seem super interested in playing run defense sometimes. And he just at the end of the day, like I think he's a good coverage player. He'll make a couple special plays. Like there's one play in particular that he made. I forget who it was against, but like he really read the play, like cleaned, got across the receiver's face at the last second, jumped in front of his teammate. Even actually might have also made the play, but took essentially an interception away from his teammate, but he intercepted the ball. Like great play. At the end of the day, like high upside player, I think, but you might have to use him similarly to Bowman just for a different reason. I don't think it's because he doesn't have the physical capability to do it. I just think he isn't interested right now to do it.
That's fair.
So that's where I'm at with him.
Yeah, that's my little research there. That's kind of the vibe I got.
Gotcha. Yeah. And so we have our 5 taken care of. So I think we're 6 right now for both of us. I'll kick things off here. We'll see if we have the same guy. I have Andrew Makuba out of Texas at 6.
I also have him at 6. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like we have similar thoughts.
I'm glad to hear that he's also your 6. Because like a lot of guys a lot of people are really high on him as well.
I do like him. Like him and Sanker, I think you could kind of flip them for me. Either way, it just depends on what you value more. I think Makuba's a better coverage player day one. I think he has more of the playmaking ability day one, but this lack of size is certainly an issue. And I think that could limit him to, again, like not as much as Bowman, but like a similar type of problem. Where I think he's a better overall coverage player, especially in man coverage ability, but the kind of the light frame and he's much more willing, even I think, as a tackler too. But just at some point, it doesn't matter how willing you got to be able to do it, and he doesn't always have the ability to do it.
Yeah. The tackling is he's just an ankle biter.
Yeah,
that's probably the best way to put it.
And probably, like, to his credit, like what he just has to do, and I think it's good that he at least is willing to try to do that type of stuff. But sub 200, sub 6 foot, again, that's going to be lower percentile for safeties, especially nowadays. So
the thing that's interesting about him is obviously a converted nickel corner. Played more nickel at Clemson, and obviously Texas did not need that because they have Jahdae Barron to do that sort of thing. But I almost wonder if he's more of a nickel at the next level. I know a lot of the shows I've been listening to, they feel like it was a good move, him moving to safety. I just worry he's still got like a lot of learning to do with how to play a lot of the safety zone roles and stuff. Because there were times where he just looked a little lost. I couldn't tell if it was just the scheme or if it was him just not knowing where to be. And that was a little concerning for me. That was kind of the biggest thing. But I mean, like, his ball skills are very good. Like, very good ball skills. And he is sticky in man coverage. So, like, at worst, I think he can be a nickel in the NFL. But yeah, I'm interested to see where he goes and how he gets used. I think that'll really kind of determine his ceiling.
I tend to agree. I think the slot versus safety thing is a common topic. Like, how many of these guys are actually safeties? How many of these guys are really like? I think you have the conversation with a couple different guys because of the stickiness in man coverage and the fact that he's played the position at the college level. Does make him a very easy, like, hey, maybe this guy's just our slot instead of a safety if it doesn't work out. Like, which kind of helps him, I think, because if a team takes him to be a deep safety and he just can't quite get, like you said, some of the stuff down and it's just not as effective, he could move inside and play the slot. Now, I do worry a little bit about the physicality of playing the slot at the NFL level. Like, can he come down and fit the run? Like, I think he'll be willing to do those things, but I don't know if he'll just be able to do it, right? Like, that's kind of the issue. But as a cover slot, like a guy who comes in primarily, like maybe he moves down to the slot in third downs or in certain matchups with like shiftier receivers in the slot, that could make a lot of sense. So he it does matter where he ends up going and what position he ultimately plays. But you hope, I think, that he can be like a true center fielder type because of the athleticism. But those are kind of few and far between for a reason. It's definitely hard to do that in the NFL. So we'll see about
one last thing on him that kind of just weird note on him on the film. If you're watching this, Andrew Makuba, shut up. Just stop getting into it with people after every snap.
He's very
like, every snap, and it's like, dude, just stop. Like, sometimes it's so unnecessary too.
Yeah, I mean, part of me is like, I kind of like that. Like, that's how Kobe Bryant at corner is. For like, he wants to just chew everyone out every single play. Like, part of me is like, if you're playing DB in the NFL, like, especially if you're a smaller DB like he is, like, you kind of like it. But there you get to a point where like, okay, maybe you need to chill out a little bit. Like, it's just not that serious. But no, it's very funny. But real quick before we finish out our top four here, I want to run down and we'll save his top four as well. But Jake, like we mentioned, cannot be here with us tonight. He's fine. That sounded weird. He's just at work, like I said earlier in the show. He's fine. But anyway, couldn't be with us. He's not here with us anymore. No. But his top 10, he did throw it in here. He's tried to do that before, and then it like doesn't happen. I feel bad. You'll see what he really thinks about these players in our last episode. But He has R.J. Mickens at 10. Malachi Moore at 9, so same as me. It was again similar to you. Jonas Senker at 8. Billy Bowman Jr. at 7. Lathan Ransom at 6. So I feel he must be more closer to what you think with him. And then he has Makuba at 5. So he's a little bit higher on him than the two of us, but still, again, right in the same range. So the top 4, though, we'll see how he lines up versus us. But speaking of that top 4, let's jump in with, I want to have your number 4 first, because I wonder if it's going to be the same guy for us. I think it will be. Let's see.
Maybe. I'm curious. I don't know.
This is where it gets interesting for sure.
I was lower on both my 3 and 4 than I expected to be.
Okay.
But I got Xavier Watts at 4.
Okay, I have Eman Warrior at 4. So it's very similar at this.
Yeah, he's my 3. So
gotcha.
That kind of makes sense.
Yeah, Watts is my 3. So those are just flipped. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. Yeah. But yeah, we can talk Watts first, I guess.
Yeah, let's talk Watts first here. So give me the rundown.
I like Watts. He has good depth. He's got great ball skills. I mean, you don't get that many interceptions in college without being able to play the ball really well.
No, yeah.
I mean, some of them are a little fluky, but I do really like a lot of things about him. Obviously, the quickness is there, at least laterally. Overall, not sure how great of an athlete he is. I think I worry he might be at the NFL level an average athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And that could hurt him with some of the other issues that I saw. Because, also, I love the play strength when he uses it, but very reluctant to get involved against the run, very sloppy tackler. Those are some kind of things that concern me. And then the big thing for me is the hips. I just worry that he's not going to have the hips to play man in the slot. And I think if you are just using him as a deep safety, because he's not getting involved in the run and he's not playing man up on guys in the slot, I worry that, to do that at a really high level, you need to be an exceptional athlete. And I just don't think he's that. And that's kind of my worry with him. But he got 3rd round grade for me.
Yeah, he's weird. So, I think he's really good in man coverage from the slot when it's tight ends. I think I described him in my notes could be a tight end eraser at the next level. That's the type of slot defender he is. I don't think you want to necessarily throw him on a lot of even the bigger slots, because he's a solid size safety, but he's not ginormous. He's not, a man warrior who we'll talk about here in a second. But he has the size to handle tight ends. I think he has the play strength, like you talked about. The hips are a little less oily than you'd like you said. I think it's kind of part of the issue with him. But it just feels like he's always in the right place in coverage. He always gets himself to the right place. And I think some of the guys below him on my list, I think they're better athletes than him, but they don't have the feel for coverage and they don't have the ability to kind of see things and make plays on balls that their athleticism wasn't the reason why they made. He's in the position where he's able to read what's going on ahead of time, get to a spot, make plays on the football, do that type of stuff. I think his pursuit's really good in the run game, not coming up and hitting guys, but when a guy does break out, I think he's very good at cutting them off and kind of stopping those big plays, which as a safety is really important, especially with some of the running backs we have not only coming in this class, but we have the Barkleys of the world and the Derrick Henrys. Keeping those guys from breaking the 70-yard run is becoming more and more important, it feels like, at the next level. So, he has the right combination of skills where I'm if I needed a safety to play tomorrow, he's probably, especially this archetype of safety, that's why he's 3 for me. Eman Warrior has much more potential, just does. He physically, everything he does, the type of player I think he could be. But that's why Watts is one slot ahead of him, because I think I've already seen him do stuff that I'm confident he's going to be able to do at the next level. Warrior still is trying to figure out who he is as a player. And I think that just makes it a little bit hard. That. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. You have a very funny comp that you have with him that I'm sure you'll talk about. But he has way more potential. But Watts, I'm confident if I need someone to start safety more, I think he'd be pretty good. like not in a class that doesn't have outside of the top two guys. I think for us doesn't have like true difference makers, at least like day one difference makers to me. That matters a lot ultimately. So.
Yeah. That's kind of the biggest thing. He just, we're moving on to, I kind of agree with you on Watts. I get why you have him at 3.
So
I
it's
think
splitting hairs. It's potential versus day one ability. Yeah.
That's really it. Yeah.
Yeah. For the record, Jake's number 4 safety is someone we'll talk about in a little bit here. Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. He has him at number 4. So we'll talk to Jake about that, I'm sure, at some point soon.
Yeah.
And then we have Nicky Manwari as 4 and 3. You have him as your 3, correct? You said, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about him a little bit. He's 3 on Jake's list. He has Watson number 2. So that's where we're at with him. So it feels like he's just a little lower on Winston than us, and kind of feels the same way that I do probably about Manwari and Watts. But let's talk about Manwari here.
Yeah.
No, he's not drinking the Kevin Winston Jr. Kool-Aid.
He's not drinking enough Penn State Kool-Aid.
That's fair. I mean, we kind of, I mean, it's a little easy for us. Anyway, Nicky Manwari. This is one of the most polarizing players in the draft, and I think for good reason. Like, if someone was like, I have this guy as far and away the number 1 safety off of potential, I'd be like, sure, man, I could get behind it. I could see it. If you told me he was your 8th safety, because you're like, I don't know what the hell he is or what he's going to be, I'd be like, all right, that's a little bit, I think, mean to him, but I can understand that too. He is a strange evaluation, to say the least. And I know you in particular had something funny to say about him too in our chat. So I'd like you, especially because you're higher on him a little bit in this case, kind of flipping coins, whatever. I want you to start us off with your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I can't remember the names because I used the wrong player name.
Wrong Seattle safety, but you were talking about Seattle safety. It's Cam Chancellor's who you're talking about physical profile.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Built like Cam Chancellor, does not play like it.
No.
Built like Cam Chancellor, plays like, I forget the guy I used.
I know who you're talking about. I don't know why I can't think of it either. I had it in my head. Yeah, Earl Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like if they flipped roles, but kept the body of Chancellor trying to play like he did in Seattle defense. Yeah.
I just don't get it.
It's weird.
You're a giant and you're fast. Like, you can be a heat-seeking missile.
Yes,
and instead you choose to play like this little dainty flower out in center field. Just hang back. I'm going to cover. I'm going to make all these great plays in the coverage. And then, there's a run. Let me.
It's so weird
to make a play.
To see it is that because when you mentioned that to me, I knew what you're trying to say. Like whenever you said, because we talked about it later, and I was like, "Do you mean Cam?" And you're like, "Yes, Cam. I meant Cam Chancellor." I'm like, "All right, cool." But I knew what you're trying to say, and then I watched him. Like, yeah, what is going on? Like, and here's the thing: I understand he has the athleticism to play like an Earl Thomas, right? He has that true like straight line speed, the ability, the fluidness for someone his size is ridiculous.
But he doesn't need to.
Right, I know. Like, so it's cool that he can do that, right? Like, that's awesome. To me, like, it does get to a point where I'm like, I don't care if you can play like 190-pound free safety if you can't do the 220-pound stuff too. It just becomes a weird fit on the field. Because if I'm putting a 220-pound dude out there at safety, and he's the athlete he is, I'm supposed to be like, oh man, this guy is going to come down, light dudes up. He's going to destroy people over the middle. He's going to take stuff away down the field with his speed. But he only does half the stuff that you think he's going to do. So it's like, is this a mentality thing where he just doesn't want to be physical? Is this like how South Carolina wanted him to play? Like, how much of this is fixable? And like, how much of this is just who he is as a player? And I don't really know. And that's why he ultimately landed 4 for me, because I'm like, if I'm just getting like the deep safety ability from him, that's really cool. The potential of that's still really high. Like, I like the fact that a player like that can fit that role. But if he's not going to play like a 220-pound safety at all, it just limits his upside and like how versatile he can be.
Yeah. And I think the physical profile for me is why he got a slightly higher grade than Watts.
And I get it. That's fair.
The ceiling is so high.
It is, yeah.
So. I worry about like what it's going to be like at the next level. I think it was Trevor Sikkema actually had a really good comp on the floor and ceiling for him. I don't know if you saw it on their
I don't
show.
think so.
He's like, you hope that he can figure it out and be like a Jeremy Chin
Oh,
type.
okay.
And then, but if not, then you just have Obi Melifonwu.
That's, you know what? Yeah, that's kind of weirdly accurate. Yeah, you don't want to draft Obi Melifonwu in the top 50 picks. You don't want to do that.
No,
probably the top 32 picks because of probably where he's going to go.
I have a late second grade on him. That's kind of where I fell on him. And like Watts is a third round grade for me just because, some of the stuff, the run support bothered me. And like the difference to me was, I feel like, Manowari has more of the athleticism to get away with playing a certain way. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of just rawness there that he needs to figure out. Otherwise, I mean, there's athletes. I mean, there's not athletes like him every draft.
Not really.
There's great athletes every year that can play football at a high level. So like, if you can't figure out how to play like you're built, it's not going to work. It's not going to last very long.
No, because regardless of whether it's fair or not, you can't tell me a team is going to draft this guy high and then be okay with him not being a physical presence at 220 pounds. Like there's just no way. And like, maybe they do just think like, we've talked to him. Like he doesn't seem like he doesn't want to be more physical. Maybe it's just the way he was asked to play. Whatever, right? I don't know the whole story of that, right? That's part of the problem with evaluating players from our end of things is like there's certain variables that we don't get to know about either till late in the process or until they're already in the NFL. Like, what is this? How's this guy wired? Is he able to play more physical, or is it just not how he is? Like, because if you told me like he could get 20% more physical and keep all the coverage stuff and coverage, but like sign me up, let's do it. I don't know that. So it just clouds things a little bit. So at the end of the day, like I think in a worst case scenario, I do think the Obi Melifonwu thing's funny, but I think he does have so many physical traits that if he is just a deep safety or like a true coverage player, he has the ability to be that. And I think he could be a really valuable piece to a defense. But he's going to be more limited than he has any reason to be if he can't get more physical as a tackler. Like, that's just the end of like if the run defense doesn't come around to some level, and maybe like. Can he be like one of these big slot defenders that we've been seeing, like the Kyle Hamiltons of the world, stuff like that, where get him close to line of scrimmage. He kind of learns how to play the run more physically, run fits, all that good stuff. Maybe that will make him more valuable in that phase. If you can use him as a blitzer, which I'm sure is going to be disgusting if he gets used that way. Like, maybe that's what ultimately happens, but. I think it's going to take a creative defensive coordinator, especially if he never becomes a great run defender, to get the value out of him. And then if not, he has to develop that way himself. Like he has to figure it out.
Yeah, you need a good defensive backs coach to really get him dialed in.
Like honestly, like he's not going to make it this far. I really don't think so. But like the Jets in the second round would be awesome with Aaron Glenn. Like he'd be awesome for them. I think like that would be a great fit for both sides. I think in this situation, they need safety help. He could kind of do the deep safety stuff for now, and they could work on making him a more complete player. Like. That would make a lot of sense, but he's probably going first round at this point. If I had to guess, I really think that's what's going to happen. Guys like this go early, like even at safety. I feel like someone's going to be like, you know what, screw it, we're going to give him a shot, especially in a draft like this where there's not a ton of like true like slam dunk first round picks. Like back end of the first round, someone's probably going to take a shot.
Which I wouldn't be me.
Yeah, again, I would be wanting to wait till the second round at least. Him and Watts both have a chance to crack the back end of my top 50. I haven't settled on anything yet, mostly just because I like safeties a little bit more, I think, than some other people do. And I think in a class like this, they're probably 2 of the 50 best players, or at least close to it. But in general, like taking this guy in the first round is certainly a gamble, is all I'm going to say. It's certainly something you got to be careful with, but. Let's get into our second safety, which I believe for both of us is going to be Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, which again, he was number 4 for Jake here, number 2 for him was Watts, and we know who his number 1 is, the same as ours. Let's talk about Kevin Winston Jr. for a second. Missed pretty much all of this past year, so you have to go back to 2023 to really get a feel for who he is. But even though I covered this team for a long time, I didn't cover the team while he was really playing much. So I want to defer to you first, Dalton. Why do you have him ultimately above some of the guys who are consensus ranked above him as number 2 safety in this class?
So I think the thing that people knocked him on, and I think because of the injury, was that if you watch just the 2023 tape, the instincts are just not quite there. There's some things that just need to improve. But while there wasn't a lot of 2024 tape, like you go back and watch like the West Virginia game, for example, like there was clear improvement of the instincts. I think we, I would have really liked the chance to see more of. I think if not for the injury, I do think he's a guy that probably gets a first round grade. He got an early second grade from me. I think he'd be pretty comfortably in the top 25 if not for that injury. That's kind of where I'm thinking he'd have been. Because I mean, just the size and the closing speed is just incredible. And also just such a sure tackler. And his and the punch. That punch on the ball is just like, that's just one of those X factors that I don't think you can, that like if you're an NFL defensive coordinator, you're salivating over. Like the idea that he might get you an extra, 4 or 5 turnovers a year, just from interceptions and a few forced fumbles. Like that's so big. I think really like the knocks on him are play recognition, tracking the ball in the air a little bit, but those are things that he just didn't get to work on because he didn't have this year. And that's the tricky thing with him. I do think, I think if you take him, in the top 50, I think if you spend a top 50 pick on him, you are betting on growth and, you are taking a big bet on him, but I do think there's potential for that to really pay off.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of echo a lot of what you said with him. I think my bottom line, and ultimately kind of what put him ahead of Watson and Manwari, was one, might be the best tackler in the class, just period, across the board. Like, no matter what position we're talking about, probably the best just pure tackler in the class. When he gets his hands on you, basically it's over. Like, you're not going to probably break the tackle, which is a safety. There's a reason why the position is called what it is, okay? You are the kind of the safety net for the defense. Like, if all else fails, it's your job to make sure whoever has the football doesn't get in the end zone. And this guy is about as good at that as it's going to ever be possible to be. Like, this is what it is, especially as a prospect. Now, the other thing that's kind of the biggest thing for me is you look at a guy like Nick Manwari, his measurables are off the charts, right? Like, we know this. But he doesn't play like that, right? So how much of that is like how much of it's going to matter is up in the air, depending on who you talk to, who you ask. Like, we have different opinions on him. Whatever.
Even play speed on a Manwari.
Right. Sometimes, especially, like because he's slow to diagnose things sometimes because you can tell he's like not really all the way there. And you can say the same thing about Kevin in a lot of ways too, just because again he hasn't really gotten the instincts down as much in safety yet. But he's, just to give you an idea, like as far as the profile of this player, he is 71st percentile or better in all these things: hand size, height, weight, arm length, wingspan. There's a reason why he's such a good tackler, because he's got freaking Spider-Man arms. Like, it's insane. Like, he's this all-encompassing force basically as a tackler. And I think that's going to start to show up more in coverage as he gets more comfortable with that. Now, it would have been nice to see last year if he was healthy. And if the injury is fully healed and he was able to tested totally good for a guy his size, ran a 4.51, had like I think a 1.51 10-yard split, very explosive in short areas especially. Like, all of it checks out for me as far as an athlete, as far as a size profile, tackling. He's just one of the higher floor players, weirdly enough, for a player that didn't play a lot last year and has some questions about certain things. Like, he just, what he's going to be at the next level in the worst case scenario is kind of like an enforcing safety type of guy. Yeah. If he does figure it out in coverage, you could have a top 10 safety in the league type of player.
Very quickly too.
Yeah. So ultimately that's what it comes down to for him. I think is just the size profile. He checks every box pretty much except having another year of tape and maybe some health questions with the knee. But like ultimately, if he's testing before the draft even happens, I'm happy with it. So that's just me. But let's talk about our last guy. It's where and I think some people have kind of overthought this player for the most part, especially people who have him going barely in the first round and stuff like that, which I just it's Malachi Starks. He's number one across the board for this podcast. Jake, again, I'm speaking for him, but he has him as number one as well. I mean, like we said, talk about overthinking somebody.
Yeah.
Just honestly, this is not how you should determine how good players are. I'm not saying this, but for people who aren't sure about Malachi Starks as a player, go watch his combine workout and how much better he looked doing literally everything that everyone else did doing what they did. It is so clear how natural he is at playing this position and the different multitude of things he can do at the position. I think he's probably the best slot defender in the class, and I don't even think it's where he's going to play a lot of the time.
Yeah.
What he's able to do from the slot sometimes. Some of his reps in the slot when I was watching him, the play was over the second the snap was snapped. It was the guy never was open at any point a lot of the time when he was in slot, covering the slot. And again, I don't even think that's really necessarily what he's going to do all the time the next level. He could, but he doesn't have to. He's not just a slot defender, obviously. It's just everything with him is so natural. That's the number one takeaway I think you have watching him.
Yeah. Yeah, and you talk about all these freaky athletes coming into the league right now, that do it especially the tight ends and big slots that are coming into the league. He's the guy that will erase them. He's a guy that is big enough and athletic enough to run with those types of guys. And part of it is, the athleticism is great, but the football IQ is the really impressive thing with him. He got I was back and forth on first round or top 10 grade for him. It ended up being first round, just because, the long speed, I just wonder how high his ceiling is in a single high set. And, I don't know if, I think that's something when it comes to the value of the safety position, if you're not going to definitely do any one thing, it's hard to give you a top 10 grade. Right. But I mean, the amount of different things you're going to be able to do with him is going to really, really be helpful for a defensive coordinator. And he does play his deep zone responsibility super well.
Yeah.
And while he, again, long speed's not terrific, it's good enough. And he plays fast. Plays really fast. Sure tackler is kind of the biggest thing. The only other knock I had on him was he's willing to get involved in the run game. I'd like to see him get off blocks a little better. And he's just not a thumper as a safety. It is the one thing that I do usually really like in safeties that I just didn't really see from him. But he's going to get people on the ground.
Yeah, I think his tackling, I described it kind of as hot and cold. When he gets his hands on guys cleanly, he definitely has the play strength to finish plays. Sometimes if he doesn't quite latch on the right, he's not the most physically imposing guy in the world. He is good size for the position for sure, and it's nothing ridiculous. But at the end of the day, with him, everything is just it feels like everything's easy for him in coverage, especially. And I know that the run game is starting to become a bigger thing, obviously, and for good reason. And you need to care more about how guys are going to play against the run and safety more so than in a while. But the coverage upside with this guy is just too good. It just is. You can't have a player that covers the way he does. The way I described it in my notes for him, extremely fluid mover with good, not great long speed. I think, like you said, it's good enough for pretty much most responsibilities he's going to have, especially they're going to know that going in with him. Constantly in the right place at the right time. Seamlessly carries routes that enters his zones. As soon as he is clearly needs to take someone over, it's right snap, boom, he's on him. It's over pretty much. It feels like most of the time. Some of his best coverage plays came as a slot defender, so he has the slot versatility. Yeah, I think it might be his most impactful position he can play because of the fact that the tackling is good enough, the physicality is good enough. It's just not his strongest suit, but he can just erase dudes in the slot. It felt like at times, like it felt like I said, the play was over half the time before it really even got going for some of the guys he was covering. Tackling is hot and cold, but should be totally fine. Has versatility to cover different body types because he does have enough size to kind of do whatever you want with cover players there. And I think he should be an above average starter sooner rather than later. The ball skill is also phenomenal at times as well. So
yeah,
like this is a prototype top 15 safety. Like it's pick wise. Like this is, if you're going to take someone in the top 15 as a safety, outside of maybe wanting a little bit more physicality, you know, keeping him out of that like top 10 range, like you said, I think that's really the only thing separating him from that range. That's, I mean, you're not going to get much better than this most times.
Doesn't have a top 10 grade from me, but is he is 8th on my board.
He's going to be firmly somewhere in my top 15. I haven't decided where yet because I do wonder a little bit like where I should ultimately have him, but he's going to be somewhere in my top 15 for sure. Like it's probably closer to 10 than 15 also. So yeah. But yeah, great player. I think the safety class is weird. Like you kind of said, like there's this huge chunk of guys. It's like, day 3 flavor of the week, basically.
Yeah.
And then it's the guys at the top where it's like Watts has the questions about the athleticism and some of the stuff. I mean, Worry is pretty much questions about everything except the athleticism. Like it's a weird kind of group there. And then we're just higher on Winston Jr., I think, than a lot of people. So
I mean, I think it says a lot about the depth of the class, like not being great when the number 2 guy at the position is coming off a major ACL injury.
Yeah, but hey, you know, he was able to test
He's
it.
really good. He's
all right.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
I do think, just this class is not nearly as deep. Like I thought Winston was going to get pushed down my list because I thought other guys were going to be more impressive than they were. And that was kind of the surprising part, I think, for me.
Yeah, like I like some of the, again, like if you're taking day 3 flyers, this is a really good class for that because there's guys that have either the athletic traits, they have the ability to thump. Like there's guys in that range that are going to be able to come in and maybe potentially become starters for you. But I just wouldn't take them until day 3 because I think all of them have very specific flaws or they have a very specific role that I could see them playing. So that's that's the definition of day 3 guy to me is you could do 1 or 2 things. Other stuff, I don't know. So ultimately, I think it's a pretty good class if you need either a depth safety with potential or if you're picking up high and you really desperately need a safety. Some of these guys at the top do offer a lot of upside or even day 1 potential with a guy like Watts. So any other thoughts you have on the safety class as a whole before we get out of here?
I don't think so.
Yeah, fun group overall. I had a good time watching them. So, but that will do it for our positional rankings for the year. So we're finally through that. Now I know I have a bunch of rechecks. I'm probably going to touch 200 players. Ultimately, I'm going to get to about that close to it. I'm probably not going to rank that many players. So I'm probably going to keep it to a top 150. But that won't be until the draft starts that you'll see that. Next week, though, all of our top 50s will be kind of shown up. We'll talk about how we differ. We'll get a consensus one, hopefully, if Jake can get his to mine in time or get his to me in time where I can kind of come up with that consensus board. But we'll talk about that, our overall thoughts on the class before we get ready for the draft itself. And just, again, 10 days coming up very fast, guys. So that'll do it for us this week. We'll see you guys next time. And, again, hopefully Jake will be around next week. We don't want him to miss that one. But, should be a lot of fun. We'll see you guys next time.